It was never my desire to observe it. It occurred entirely by coincidence. Passed by the sofa, I cast a brief in its direction once more. The images danced before my eyes. They transformed into an ingrained component of my thoughts. An unremarkable afternoon, one of those lethargic days when time appears to elongate. Ceaselessly, I proceeded towards my steps. In Stephen's room, there was a pile of new. With towels in hand, I endeavored to divert my attention, myself from the impending challenges with my husband Richard at the age. At 25, Stephen reclined on the sofa. His attention remained fastened to his phone, as though time itself had reached a halt as it walked by. A glimmer on his display captivated my attention instantly. My gaze fell lower. Initially, I was perplexed by the sight unfolded before me, and then it all converged as his phone exhibited depictions of women in captivating garments, whilst a short video played without sound in the background dot was unmistakably identifiable, and my breath caught in my throat. The towel's impending disaster nearly eluded my grip. Stephen must perceived my presence, for he turned, his cheeks flaming rapidly, swiftly moving, deep crimson dot. Here reached for his phone, wanting to quiet it. Please ensure you subscribe to my channel, enabling me to craft more engaging truths. Stories for you akin to this one should exist. Ensure to remain engaged with this video until its conclusion. To the conclusion akin to the video, the narrative is destined to be completely enthralling. Your support is invaluable. Clicking the like button can create a Carol notice the difference, as he hesitated in his speech. Quaking. I never intended for you to obtain a fleeting view of my utmost sincerity. I swiftly diverted my attention. My apologies. My cheeks flushed as I turned to Lev. A thrill shot through my heart. Images persisted in my thoughts, refusing to diminish. And I realized that the connection we the shared would be irrevocably transformed. The remainder of the day persisted with an unshakable weight. The photos, the summary, the entirety replayed in my memory like a clip. A compelling narrative awaiting their recounting, the manner in which Stephen answered, hurried effort to mute his phone, and his faltering pronunciation of my name remained in my thoughts for an extended period. I consistently told myself that it was. There is no need for concern. He is a young man, merely a segment of life's progression. There is no cause for concern regarding the narrative at this time. It was not the images themselves that this unsettling presence remained with me. An unpleasant sense exists between us, tension that persisted unarticulated as the sun descended beyond the horizon. We discovered sitting at the dining table alone, the two of us immersed in warmth. The dots as the hour progressed. Richard remained absorbed on his tasks, leaving Stephen and me to traverse the hush that lingered in the air between as I sought to initiate a discourse. Have you gotten any updates regarding the jobs I applied for? Information regarding my inquiry? Maintain a jovial tone. As Stephen elevated his glance from his plate, reveals a trace of unease flitting over his face, not yet motionless. He muttered softly while I nodded in response, carefully navigating my meal across the plate, immersed in contemplation, point arriving in due course. Everything will transpire as intended. Patience is essential. The essential element for the forthcoming voyage may be him, muttered while he distractedly shoved manipulating a chunk of chicken with his fork. The theologian ceased movement, and I observed his intentional avoidance of my. As morning emerged, I ascended with the sun, determined in my pursuit to depart the preceding day. As I commenced in the work of cleaning the house, I expended my energy into the work, resolved to maintain my hands occupied and my mind focused. As I ascended higher into the sky, I discovered myself cleaning every area adjacent to the sofa where it possessed everything. Stephen ambled with his hair unkempt, Still shimmering from the shower, holding a steaming cup of coffee in his hands, he halted abruptly the instant his gaze conveyed a greeting of "Good morning." Articulated in a calm tone, "Morning," I responded while my sight was directed elsewhere, hesitated for a moment, as if words were lingering on the cusp of articulation, for the appropriate moment to be articulated. Finally, he commenced narrating the story of yesterday. I remained motionless amidst the hum of the vacuum. Engulfing the tranquility of the no need for explanation, I responded, promptly deactivating the vacuum and standing to my full height. I did not wish for you to observe that, he stated. His face reddening to an even more intense hue of crimson, I responded, It's all right. Indicating dismissively, let us simply proceed from here. Hen acquiesced. However, his posture indicated a persistent ambiguity. In the subsequent days, we proceeded. There is a subtle presence in echo, eschewing the tacit shadows of what had occurred. However, the discomfort sensation persisted. Right beneath the on the surface, there were instances when I observed his furtive eyes directed at me, glance extending for a few moments longer than it ought to have, prior to his rapid averted his gaze, as though the action itself. It was a secret he was fervently intent on preserving. Traversed the identical route encountering various instances when I observed him uncovering details I had previously disregarded. The strain in his jaw intensified the attention. An aura of confidence that enveloped him. With each stride he took, the air became denser. An unarticulated tension intertwining between us, persisting in quiet, enveloped one afternoon when Stephen and I are on a business trip. Found us isolated at that moment as I stood in the kitchen concocting a steaming cup of he entered the room seeking a taste of tea. I inquired while gesturing toward the kettle. He responded nonchalantly while leaning. We lingered against the counter. Quiet enveloped him as he poured the tea. The sound of soft rain. Ultimately, he discovered his Caroli's voice began to falter. Confidence in our connection maintained a smooth and pleasant state. As I lifted my gaze and shock enveloped me. I exclaimed that they are not peculiar. He offered a subtle response, too hastily. Indeed, they possess a sad smile. Must assume responsibility for that. It is not your fault, I informed him. It was an abrupt twist of fate. Nevertheless, he softly replied, I hope you will not. Critique me severely. I positioned the mugs, carefully placed on the counter, and then turned to Steve, and I engaged in conversation while maintaining eye contact. I harbor no animosity towards you. Exchanged looks in the surrounding atmosphere, ourselves burdened by the weight of unarticulated. He approached, his stare intensifying. Inquiring into my own carol, he muttered, I interrupted him prior to his completion. His opinions were articulated with clarity, conviction disappearing from his visage, tinged with a profound crimson shade. I apologized, but at that moment he commenced to spoke, and then abruptly departed the kitchen, leaving me to contend with my personal reflections about that nocturnal repose evaded me. I found myself re-examining the occurrences that transpired in the kitchen, contemplating them introspectively. Beloved narrative, every element vivid and alive as the clock hit midnight. I emerged from bed longing for a calming cup of sham lunch tea to alleviate my anxious thoughts. As I entered I was transported back to the living room. See Stephen there. The soft radiance of the television emits a pleasant glow surrounding him. I softly replied, You are awake late. He cast a peek in my direction while leaning against the doorway. His countenance reveals a calm slumber that evades us. Both dots following a brief interval of. With uncertainty, I proceeded to the other side, positioned oneself beside the sofa, well immersed in stillness. For a period, the sole auditory presence is the gentle murmur of the television after a brief interval. Stephen commenced speaking, his voice scarcely above. Do you ever feel trapped? Gazed at him, astonished by the eye. Inquired. What do you mean to Ash? Responded as if your existence does not genuinely belong to you, as though you were simply adhering to a predetermined script. I nodded slowly and affirmed that I frequently detected that sentiment, and he directed his attention towards me. What actions do you take regarding a serious expression? I contemplated for a moment and found myself that I admitted that I frequently find myself at a loss for words. Contemplate the minor pleasures that provide me. Happiness resides in the nuanced moments that illuminate. My day unfolded gently, almost tenderly. Gloomy laughter conveying a sense of yearning to comprehend their importance to him. Before I could articulate a word, he drew, his expression drawing closer. He hummed the words of a gentler carol in a soft voice. Just above a whisper, I halted my breath ensnared in my throat, suspended in duration. While I remained completely motionless, with a mild, I extended my hand gently, brushed into him momentarily, relationship that conveyed significant meaning. An unusual thrill flowed through me, yet hastily withdrew my hand. I cannot whisper. I comprehend him. Whispered in response, however, none of us. Stirred the dot. Asden fractured the heavens, obscured, and a storm was unleashed, rage saturating the terrain incessantly. Precipitation and fierce winds with Richard absent. During his adventure, it was solely Stephen and me, confronting the tempest collectively as the sun descended beneath the horizon. The energy flashed and disappeared, enveloping the dwelling shrouded in pervasive darkness. I observe, lit several candles in the living room. Their flashing luminescence produced extended shadows that flickered on the walls. Stephen descended the stairs, his phone in hand. Distribute the powers universally commented, while positioning themselves on the sofa. I observed seated in the chair across. It appears we must discover joy in the unchanging rituals of yesteryear. Wore a smile? Do you possess any board games? I responded with a chuckle, suggesting that I might share. Gently we assembled, surrounding the coffee table, involved in an animated game of Scrabble, illuminated by candlelight, moved around us, projecting whimsical shadows while we jested about our vocabulary. Sand is not a word, I stated, chuckles emanating as I arrange my tiles. He asserted, indeed, seek it. Determine how I might navigate the internet. It humorously stated, then you must simply place your trust in me, he stated, a cheeky smile emerging on his face. His grin proliferated rapidly. Transient instance of the storm beyond evaporated from my consciousness. However, as we interacted, in our game the mood transformed significantly. Hence, a subtle point as our hands brushed on the exterior of the tiles of inspiration lit within me, disclosing the implicit relationship that remained suspended in the atmosphere. He was near as the latter moments of the game dissipated into I commenced the accumulation of memory. Tiles, but then Stephen's hand delicately. He said Carol, and paused my motions. Softly looked up to him. The ambiance surrounding us was dense with unarticulated emotions, precisely as I was regarding. He extended his arm over the table to speak, mashed his lips into mine. Do it begun, as a delicate kiss, a gentle inquiry, as though he sought approval, yet subsequently disregarded it, ultimately intensified the tension that has persisted between us. Over the past few days, have disrupted the status quo, separated. I glanced at him, my heart beating. This is exceedingly wild, I mumbled, perhaps? He responded with an unyielding tone. However, it does not appear to be a discrepancy from that night. The world progressed in a manner akin to the sun's transformation. Conceivable, we had passed beyond a threshold, and retreat was no longer an initially. It was the option, transient instances of a brief kiss in the kitchen, a delicate caress of fingers when no other individuals were present in the vicinity. As time progressed, our courage intensified, more robust for a single afternoon, as Richard labored diligently at work after a period of absence. Stephen has been away from home for several days. Encountered me in the laundry room. He meticulously folded the garments, lingering in the process. In the doorway for amendment, simply, "Are you observing me? Do you require assistance?" Questioned with a cheeky glimmer in his eye. "You genuinely possess the skill of folding a—" I inquired about the garment, arched my eyebrow. He flashed a smile of inquiry, really authentic. Nevertheless, I acquired knowledge, swiftly approached as he neared the point. His hand grazed mine as I elevated it. My glance, the gaze he sent at me, conveyed a cold race down my spine. "Carol," he said, murmured his voice, scarcely above a. I inhaled as I permitted him to lean closer, and shortly thereafter, the laundry diminished as we exchanged a kiss. It was not long before others, perceived, felt a change had occurred between Susan and me. The nearest partner was the first to articulate. One morning she arrived for coffee. Her eyes was fully locked onto me as you appear to be established in the kitchen. Distinct she observed her tone, exhibiting a trace of inquisitiveness. "In what manner?" I queried, endeavoring to dismiss it with a laugh. "I do not." "I know," she remarked, turning her head slightly, of enigma resonating in her voice. Joyfully, I merely shrugged. "Perhaps I have merely discovered a more tranquil sleep." Nevertheless, Susan remained unconvinced by my argument. Words, regardless of their nature, persist. Proceed with the remarkable experience of I reciprocated her smile. She smiled, however, her words resonated in my thoughts. Shortly after her departure, Stephen's narrative twist. Former girlfriend, Melissa, resurfaced, contributing multifarious intricacies of the development. She arrived at the residence dramatically. Unexpectedly, her hair was perfect, and her smile a mere facade. "Greetings, Stephen," she remarked with a cordial smile. It has been ages since our previous meeting." I observed from the corridor as Stephen, her demeanor was welcomed by him. Melissa experienced tension as he spoke about his stone. Calculated and intentional. "What motivates you to this location?" "I believed I would cease. Farewell, and observe your condition." "Doing," she remarked smoothly, passing by him into. In the living room, Stephen cast a transient glance. Regretful. "Look in my direction prior to you followed behind." Her eye remained concealed, receptive to their interaction. "Therefore you find yourself living here now?" Melissa queried, her tone light, yet tinted with a harshness. "How is that revealing?" "It is acceptable," Stephen responded. "Indeed," she observed, "once upon a time. This location was the origin of your contempt for what became silence remained in the atmosphere." A gentle laugh. A faint ripple escaped Melissa's lips of entertainment in the tranquility. Fascinating point. When the sun descended the horizon, projecting shadows in the atmosphere in the living room, between Stephen and resonated with unarticulated expressions and the tangible tension I finally addressed. "I comprehend Melissa's difficulties here." His jaw was clenched, yet she persists. Passive. She is simply attempting to discover. "Are you certain of the truth?" I queried. Hesitated briefly before offering a subtle. Indeed, her words cascade like a river. However, they lack substance, although his voice shone a deficiency in confidence. Yet his uncertainty loomed like a shadow interlacing through the atmosphere, and for the moment I genuinely grasped the significance of what we were implementing, the line following. Melissa's visit rendered Stephen and myself equal. Increased vigilance, and the relationship we shared merely intensified over time. The veil of confidentiality infused a thrilling excitement to the developing circumstances, and our valued moments intensified profoundly one afternoon. Whilst Richard labored diligently at the office, Melissa was absent again. Stephen encountered me while I was attending to I pruned the wild rose bushes, sought sanctuary from the chaos that encircled me in anticipation of discovering a moment of serenity within chaos. "Extend a hand," he inquired nonchalantly while leaning against a gentle breeze murmurs through the barrier. Greenery encircling him. I cast a transient glance towards him. The sun emitted its warm radiance, encouraging him to narrow your eyes slightly, and there existed gleaming beads of sweat on his brow, due to the heat. Are you acquainted with the discipline of gardening? Elicited a smile upon my face. He confessed with uncertainty. A playful smile accompanied by a chuckle stretched across the face. Across my visage, as I oscillated my head, and in that situation, your appearance is met with skepticism. He approached closer, offering no assistance. His tone changing, deepening with gravity. There are undoubtedly further factors. Options I might pursue to provide, might facilitate the dynamic interaction promptly transformed into a more profound and overwhelming. He delicately raised the shears. His fingers brushed from my grasp in opposition to mine in a transient instant of connection to the garden, embellished with lofty bushes and verdant vines, encased enveloped in a cocoon of isolation, as though we were the sole souls in existence. That we captured the occasion has not yet arisen. As I have become immersed in the experience, a remnant of apprehension persisted in the periphery. Murmuring uncertainties regarding our 1 week later, Melissa reappeared. Her abrupt arrival surprised both Stephen and caught me off guard as I exited. The sound of a knock interrupted the shower. Transmit signals across the air indicating that it was Stephen's turn to greet an unforeseen guest arrived at the door. Perceive her voice from the upper floor, penetrating and exhibiting a demeanor characterized by curiosity. Recently, Cher stated, "What spreads before us? Nothing exists," Stephen answered with his stoicism, imbued with a trace of defensiveness. Indeed, she articulated her voice imbued with, I intended to embrace ambiguity. As truthfully as I descended the steps, Melissa's stare intensified as she scrutinized me. From head to toe, "Oh, greetings, Carol." She spoke with a delicate appeal. I had no knowledge of your being here. "This is my sanctuary," I proclaimed with tranquility. Her smile was merely a facade of confidence, devoid of the requisite warmth shone in her eyes, reflecting her awe at how entertaining it was. I allowed such a thing to escape my memory. Upon her departure, Stephen and I remained. Within the living area surrounded by she ultimately comprehends the profound silence. Acknowledged her continued ignorance regarding Stephen, declared despite lingering doubt. She harbors worries regarding his voice, I asserted. And that is almost more concerning. In the midst of all, my friend Susan commenced an in-depth exploration of her curiosities, provoking a multitude of inquiries. In the evening she called with a casual tone. Informal yet, there existed an undercurrent of curiosity, as though she were investigating for. "Would you be inclined to participate? Shall we have lunch together tomorrow?" she inquired. I cannot. I responded swiftly. There is a plethora of tasks requiring my attention within the residence. She paused momentarily, permitting stillness to conjure its enchantment. Before her speech resumed, It appears you have had a quite busy agenda. Recently, everything is satisfactory with you." "Indeed, the world," I responded, creating an endeavor to preserve a state of tranquility. "It may be feasible, otherwise no." The rationale she articulated, yet I could perceive the hesitation evident in her voice. Adams. "I am apprehensive regarding your well-being is the sole consideration." I assured her that everything was satisfactory. Yet the discussion persisted in my thoughts, casting an aura of unease. On a Saturday evening, Richard got home from his most recent business travel, arriving ahead of schedule. Anyone had foreseen as Stephen and I shared laughs in the kitchen with a bottle, the sound of wine shared between us. The entrance door creaked open, capturing our attention. My heart surged into my throat. Upon hearing Richard's voice reverberate, Carol halted Stevens' hand, suspended immediately prior to its ability to execute. Upon touch, his eyes widened, a surge of panic engulfing him. Urgency prompted the expeditious return of the wine bottle to its chilled resting location in the refrigerator. Conduct yourself as you typically do. Richard. Into the kitchen shortly thereafter, a radiant smile illuminating his visage as she welcomed the comfort of home. Transpires within these confines. He queried, a smile adorning his lips. Upon reconnecting, I noted my tone, possibly. An excessively bright glance from Richard glided toward the 2 wine cups positioned upon the counter, and with a discreet inclination of his head, he recognized their existence. Heartening to observe the connection flourishing between the 2 of you. As he pivoted, a breath escaped as I exited the kitchen. I was unaware that I was holding Stephen directed his gaze towards me, and for an ephemeral instant, the apprehension of potential outcomes having occurred loomed significantly. All that the near escape left us both experiencing tension. And it was not long before the stress began to manifest. Stephen begun to demonstrate an enhanced awareness of proprietorship, and his temper ignited with increased frequency during a serene evening. In the living room, he suddenly inquired, "Why must we persist in being cautious?" His voice pierced the atmosphere with, "However you comprehend there, I provided a rationale for the entire situation, endeavoring to preserve my equanimity. This must remain confidential from all individuals. Nonetheless, I am fatigued by concealing," he admitted, running a hand with a deep sigh. He ran his fingers through his hair, experienced the surge of my own exasperation. Constructing within myself is not straightforward. Me neither. Stephen, but we discover ourselves. In the absence of alternatives, the tension persisted. The air navigating its course through the essence of the night enveloped me, contemplating the extent prolonged could sustain this fragile dance in a bygone era within a world abundant. With fascination and curiosity, there existed the narrative poised to reveal itself, was initiated by Susan, finally pushed us to our boundaries. In the afternoon, she unexpectedly emerged, unexpectedly interrupting me while I was occupied organizing the living room. "I require a discussion." "To you," she stated, her voice conveying a significance of relevance. "What is occurring?" I inquired about the gentle placement of the setting, the feather duster aside. She paused momentarily, of ambiguity lingering in the atmosphere prior to her words commenced to flow. "I perceive there exists a secret that you are holding from Carol and me. Believe it possesses importance." Interesting association pertaining to Stephen. My heart commenced to race, a whirlwind of emotions, tumultuously coursing through me as I struggled. "What prompts you to maintain your composure to such conclusion?" "It is only She commented on the experience, her stare scrutinizing. "You have transformed in a manner that is difficult to overlook, and I am compelled to observe the manner in which Stephen regards you. Begin speaking to categorically reject it." The atmosphere was steeped in quiet as Carol Shaw, spoken softly, "If there is something, if anything occurs, you must inform me, before the moment eludes us." In the evening, I conveyed the remarks to Stephen, that Susan had said we must proceed with caution. I muttered my voice with extra caution, quaking with apprehension, or possibly we should merely disclose the truth. He proclaimed, his voice infused with rage, "You have lost your sanity. I have lost my composure. Can you envision the potential impact that would ensue? This is not a family." He stated, his voice imbued with a profound feeling of disillusionment.